I want you to ask yourself, what has Congress done for you? Now, during this shutdown, we have people not paid. We hope to shrink our government, no doubt. But remember, the people that do matter, like the military, are not getting paid. However, your Congress and Senate are taking paychecks every week. However, they're the ones that's causing this. Today, we're going to discuss what we believe Congress's role in this. And actually, are they the one to blame for a lot of our problems? We're going to dive into that story. And actually, do we understand the power of the Speaker of the House? Do we understand the power of controlling Congress? It actually is unbelievable how powerful they really are. We're going to discuss what could be done, truthfully, if we had leaders who cared about Americans. We're also going to discuss a quote from a Rothschild that actually references exactly what we're dealing with, literally, today, dealing with Congress and leadership. I think it should open our eyes to say, you know what? Who is actually working for us? And then when you thought this whole peace agreement and the Middle Eastern talks are over, you know what? It's kind of scary because there's been a focus that said when peace comes to this region, which is really not peace, we know that as Christians that we probably will never have peace until the end times. What just happened? There's been a push for now the discussion over the Temple Mount, over the new temple, the red heifers again. What do we see? We actually saw people in the streets and on the Palestine side and the Israel side happy that this peace agreement is going through. Now, granted, there's a lot of hurdles got to be crossed here. But if peace actually happens and then we see agreement and we see somewhat of peace, what is next? There's a historian that said, focus on the Temple Mount. Because now it's not just about Israel. It's not just about Gaza. It's about the most sacred ground, the Temple Mount. We're going to discuss that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how we want to keep Middle Eastern out of our country and how the Muslims have taken over so much already in America. Well, guess what? Something I really wasn't happy with. Department of War and Trump administration just signed an agreement with Qatar that I think is a very bad move. This, to me, was pretty frightening. The White House jumped right aboard, and I know the people on the Trump side, which again, I am a Trump supporter and I'm a conservative, they said, well, this could benefit us because we've done this in history. However, as a libertarian, I'm thinking this is not the best thing. Why don't we train people not on American soil? And I think this was a bad move by our administration. Let's dive into the story about the Qatar Air Force Base and how we're giving them rights to America. Especially when the leader who just signed the agreement with the Department of War, he is in complete lock, stock, and barrel in support of Hamas. Did you know this? We found a tweet that he posted saying that he believes in Hamas. Is this smart? Let's dive into these stories today. Well, the fire is looking nice. It is a brisk morning, starting off around 50 degrees. So it's really nice out here in South Mississippi. Hope you're having a good morning. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so very much for being here. We're humbled every day that you support us about coming and watching our channel. Thank you so very much. Now check out the other channel, Life with Colby Mack. We do a vlog just about 2 or 3 times a week. It's not a big channel, but the whole purpose is we want you to see how we live sustainable, how we grow all these pumpkins, how we actually grow the food that we have. And we talk about preparing. On the other channel, you actually see that. You see our life. So go check that channel out. And remember to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Again, we're sharing things all throughout the day. Sometimes things that are important about the day and breaking news. Sometimes it's just encouragement. Good quotes, wise things to think about as we try to navigate this crazy world that we live in. So guys, follow me on those. Now let's jump into the stories today because that's why you're here. Now, first let's talk about the Qatari situation, because I think that is a reference of everything that we deal with. We think that life tends to kind of get away from the Middle East, and it never really does. And I think as a Christian, someone who believes in the Bible, someone who sees really the times of what we're dealing with, I don't think we'll ever get away from Middle Eastern being a big focus. If it be through the economy, through gas and petroleum, but really more than that, through the spiritual warfare that we're dealing with here and abroad. Well, this week it came out and actually dropped yesterday that the Department of War, which was Pete Hegseth, signed an agreement with Qatari Air Force to utilize and be assisted with us helping them run their aircrafts. Them understanding how to be better pilots. Now, The sad thing is we're not doing this in Qatar. We're not doing this in a third world country. We're not doing this in the Middle East. We're not doing this on common ground. We're doing this in Idaho. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't want any foreign adversary on our grounds. Qatar is not a friend of ours. I know we want them to be a friend of ours. I know they're a very rich country, and I think that there is reasoning to have, sometimes enemies close, meaning you work alongside China, Russia, Qatar, North Korea. You may not actually agree with a lot of what they agree with. We're not friends, but we can still benefit each other and its people. No problem there. I have no problem in that concept. However, bringing an adversary here, I don't think is the right move, and giving them, really, a place to call quote-unquote home in Idaho. So how much do they learn from us? Do we really want their bombers and their pilots here learning our techniques to make them a better Air Force that ultimately may battle us or our neighbors or the West in some way? Like, we're actually building our enemies up, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Now, I know this probably has something to do with the Israel-Hamas agreement, because Qatar was a big part of that. So I don't want to, again, we're not smart enough to know everything on the inside. We have wisdom, but we don't have knowledge of the situation. So I'm not sure what was worked out. However, I don't necessarily agree with this. I think the only reason Qatar actually came to the table and actually did something for us is literally because the Hamas supporters that they support was taken out right in their capital by Israel. And I think it made them say, you know what? Oh, wow, we're in this more than we think. So I think that, can they play a vital part? Can Saudi, can Egypt, all those play a very vital part, even though we're not considered really good friends with them? We benefit off each other? Yes. But bringing them to our states, I don't think it's the right answer. Let's go over this story right quick. U.S. and Qatar signed a deal to open Qatari Air Force facility. Now, that's a quote, Air Force facility. Now, you have a lot of people that are major conservatives saying, oh, that doesn't mean they're actually going to have a base there. And, we make foreign bases all over the world. We allow troops to fly with us all the time. That's not part of our true people. Like the ones like old Air Force, retired Air Force generals have all said, well, look, we flew with Iran in the 70s and 80s. We flew with this and that and this and that. Okay, but have we ever given rights to have a Air Force facility on our grounds? That is not necessarily a quote-unquote friend of ours. This base will be homed in Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. Now, I don't think this is a very good deal, and here's why. Because, remember, this is the same people that support Hamas. This is the same one that actually kept the Hamas leadership safe during this whole battle with Israel and Gaza. Do you realize that? The only reason Israel and Qatar really kind of got into it, and the only reason Qatar really kind of came to the table, is because Israel went into Qatar and took out their leadership. I think 5 of the 7. So the other 2 were like, oh, absolutely, we'll definitely work with Israel for peace, because they don't want to die. But the thing is, these are Hamas supporters. Now, you don't believe me. Listen to this. Laura Loomer shared this, and this was an old tweet. And this is why I think we cannot lose focus on, truthfully, the people that we allow to be on our grounds. Listen to this. It says, the man who signed the agreement with the Secretary of War today established the Air Force Qatari facility in Idaho, tweeted this just a few months ago. It says, we are all, quote-unquote, Hamas. This supporter of Hamas, who is against us, who says death to America, Hamas says death to America, it's a terror group that wants to focus on the death of Americans, is now getting a U.S. sole base for his leadership to learn how to fly and be better, to ultimately cause more damage for Israel and America. Now, help me understand this. Now, I know, again, I'm not the smartest man in the world. I definitely don't know all the answers, but I don't understand how this actually benefits us in America. What I think we should have done is said, look, we're going to do this in Qatar, or we're going to do this with Israel somewhere in the Middle East, so then it helps us build up this relationship that could benefit the Middle East. I don't think showing them how to fly in America is the right way, because I don't want them knowing anything about America. I don't even understand why we even have Middle Eastern forces even close to our borders in proximity, because there is no value for them being in this part of the hemisphere of the earth. So I think this is a very bad play by the Republicans and the Trump administration. And again, we don't know all the answers. So again, we have to say we don't know all the answers. It's okay. I don't want to act like I know all this. But what I do want us to reference is, in a time where we feel that there's a danger with these Palestinian rallies and these pro-Hamas supporters who are shooting up ICE facilities and who are causing major mischief in our cities, I don't think this is the smartest thing, because they're both staying on the same side as pro-Hamas. We have people in Dearborn and in Philadelphia and in New York City and in Plano, Texas, all saying "Death to America," chanting pro-Hamas sentiment. And now we're giving them a base here. Muslims are taking over the world, and we're allowing them to just it's like we lock a door and then we give them the key to say, look, don't use it unless it's emergency. And then we allow them to come straight in. The bad thing is not allowing someone to learn how to fly. The bad thing is not selling stuff. Like we sold some missiles, I think, to Pakistan the other day. We've helped Argentina. There's things that we're going to do and sell and benefit our economy. But giving them rights to then just come into our house, I don't think is the right move. Now, what goes along with this, and why did I say this is a big deal? Because I don't believe you're going to see true peace in the Middle East. I believe this is a great thing. I think it's great that we may have a ceasefire for a while. I don't blame Israel for defending themselves. Here's the thing. We believe in Christian theology, and if you're a biblical Christian and you believe especially in a way that Israel plays a part in the end times. And we believe in Revelation. Again, getting deep in Scripture here, not trying to over-spiritualize the situation, but we do believe that there will never truly be peace in the Middle East, because we believe Middle East will play a vital part in the tribulation time. Now, you can read your Bible to get the rest, because this is not a Bible study, but what I'm trying to say is we believe there will never truly be peace. I want you to listen to this quote that comes from someone that's actually in Gaza right now. We're seeing Palestinians in Palestine parading and celebrating as they march back into Gaza in support of this peace deal with Trump. We see Israelis in Israel celebrating in the streets for the support of what America is doing. Here's the thing. When we start seeing, quote unquote, both sides come to agreement, here's what this expert said. It says, what we need to do is quit focusing on just the Israel-Gaza situation and start focusing on the Temple Mount. Because if we start seeing peace and we start seeing the Abraham Accords, we start seeing more agreements, the biggest disagreement's always going to be the spiritual one. It's not the land one, it's the spiritual one. Yes, that has land connotations, but it's going to come down to the Temple Mount. This gentleman said, look, the red heifers have been here. They've been raised. We've went through all the understanding of how we're going to sacrifice to get ready for the third temple. Back in July, we talked about this, how there was one sacrificed, or a reported, allegedly sacrificed, but they have the other red heifers ready to go. And I want you to listen to what he said. He said, the red heifers are here and ready for the third temple. Following the peace agreement, this may allow us the time to go to the Temple Mount. Now, this was coming from an Israeli insider. So, are we seeing the end times right before our very eyes? Remember, there is no such thing as peace in the Middle East, but there will be a time of peace when you talk about the end times, because it will be right before the abomination of desolation, where the third temple will be built, and so forth. You can read Daniel and Revelation to figure that out for yourself. But what I'm saying is, if we see that we're allowing for Muslims to infiltrate America, we're allowing for what we consider peace in the Middle East, which is not real peace, but now it's going to step up to where maybe it becomes definitely more of a spiritual battle, to where it's over the one place that matters more than anything to Christians, Muslims, and Jews, Temple Mount. And this Israeli insider said that's exactly what we're looking at. He said all these agreements, Qatar coming to America, Qatar helping Israel, Israel and the Abraham Accords, all this agreement and this peace, quote unquote peace, is all setting up for the situation that will come right down to the Temple Mount. And he said, because Israel has such a bad taste in the people of the world's mouth because of the situation in Gaza, he said that is setting up exactly what Revelation says, where everyone will turn on Israel. And now we're allowing Muslims to infiltrate America even more. I think that's going to give a harder time for America to stand with Israel as well. So I think all this has implications. There are good things happening when it comes to quote-unquote peace and hopefully not having wars in Israel. But just being honest, I don't believe there'll ever truly be peace. And I believe what we're doing now is just setting up for the real battle, which is going to be the third temple, the Temple Mount, and who has rights over it. The three biggest religions in the world, Christians, Jews, and Muslims. all find that area to be sacred. We believe biblically that's going to happen. Muslims believe there's going to be more chaos around that time to bring their quote-unquote Messiah in. Israel believes their Messiah is coming in with the third temple. And of course, Christians believe that Jesus will come back around the same time. So you see how this is going to be utter chaos if we allow for all the other peace in the Middle East to happen. And then the focus, just like this guy said, is Israel will step into the Temple Mount and they're going to start discussing this. I'm anxious to see exactly what's going to take place over the next coming days, weeks, and months ahead. Now, let's go back to what Trump has allowed for the Qatars. Where does this end? Where does this Middle East infiltration of America end? Now, if you noticed, they said even after the peace negotiations and agreements where Israel and Palestine and Gazans are all, cheering for Trump and cheering for America and cheering for peace, the pro-Palestine movement is still burning down cities. They're still waving flags and they're still planning riots all this week and next week. So if all of a sudden there's quote-unquote peace, why are we allowing these people to still march on our streets and say death to America? Ask yourself that. Was it ever about Gaza? Or was it about disruption and hatred towards Israel and towards Christianity and towards Republicans and conservatives and Trump? I think there's the bigger problem. And the more that we allow for people to infiltrate our country, the more we allow for the normalcy of the Muslim population here in America, the more that we allow that, that Qatar is just a normal friend of ours, Saudi is a normal friend of ours, Egypt's a normal friend of ours, the more we're allowing for us to support the people like Hamas more than Israelis. And you don't believe me, listen to what the right has done. You look at the Tate brothers, you look at Nick Fuentes, you look at Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, you look at Myron Gaines, you look at Sneeko, you look at all these what we would consider woke right. They moved away from the left because the left has went absolutely loco. However, they're not true conservatives. So what's actually happening is they're embracing, because of their hatred towards Israel, they're embracing the movement of the Palestine movement, Hamas movement, and they're almost becoming sympathizers. And you don't believe it. It is definitely programming, because if you listen to what just Candace Owens said yesterday, she was quoting about how, all this stuff with Hamas actually benefits Hamas, and Hamas needs to make sure they're getting the best end of the deal. MSNBC said the same thing. CNN said the same thing. Said that, we're talking about Israel and peace, but what about Gazans? I mean, are they going to go back to nothing and disarray? Well, to be honest with you, I don't think there's any time in war that we're supposed to go in and rebuild everything for everyone. However, they're actually sympathizing for the Gazans, and they're hoping that Israel is going to rebuild everything for them. Now, Trump and Israel have talked about building these big, high-rises and all this stuff. That's not going to happen anytime soon. But now you have people sympathizing with the terrorists that actually caused the October 7th attack in the first place. That predictive programming, that small little snippets of support, that small little snippets of Democrats coming alongside Hamas and these supporters. You don't believe me? Listen to this. There's a study done that, remember, Jewish people in America, like in New York, vote overwhelmingly for Democrats. However, they said the Democratic movement now is less than 20 to 30% in support of the Jewish population and over 50% in support and sympathizing with the Palestinians and Gazans. They said the other are just kind of indifferent. You see how that's moving? So that setup of the Temple Mount, when all of a sudden Israel says we're going to sacrifice the heifers and we're going to start building the temple, that's going to cause for all-out war. And that's going to cause for more hatred of Israel, therefore setting up for end times. You may not believe that, but I don't believe peace is actually coming to the Middle East. I don't believe that Muslims is a peaceful group of individuals that we're allowing on our shores. I believe we're causing ourselves to fall into a very, very bad place. And I necessarily don't agree with it at all that the woke right and even the Trump administration is allowing for more Muslims to come over here to learn from us. It's not their place. I believe we should teach them. Let's teach them over there. And let's make sure that they have an agreement with our allies that if they ever come against our allies, we destroy them. Destroy them. Let's see what happens over the next coming days, weeks, and months ahead when it comes to the Middle East, to peace. And keep watching Qatar. Do you know what? Qatar owns more of Great Britain than the Great Britain people own. Owns more than the king. Qatar owns more of Great Britain than the King of England owns. That's scary. You know what else? Qatar is funding more people in America than Israel is funding in America. Did you know that? The colleges? Of all the list of all the funding, everybody talks about Israel being a funder. Israel's like 9th or 10th. AIPAC is like 9th or 10th of funding things in America and propaganda in America. But guess who's funding more? China and Qatar. Isn't it weird how Israel gets a bad name and really Qatar and China is doing a whole lot more than Israel? Now I want to read this from a Twitter handle called Publius. I love this statement, and this is this is the most important thing that we're missing out of this whole discussion. We tend to think the body of Congress and Senate are just so big, and so they are over these little districts and over these little areas and over these little states, and we think, well, they don't have the power of the president because they're just over small areas. I think you have a misconception of how powerful Congress is. The one who's spending all our money, the one that appropriates all our money, the one that's funding all these NGOs, the one that's giving all our tax bases away, the one that's really destroying our dollar is based in Congress. The ones who's allowing for these activist judges to keep on going, the ones who are not impeaching, the ones who are not helping bring charges and actually DOJ actually arresting these people is because they have so many ties to Congress. I want you to listen to this. This was shared by Publius. Listen to this. It says, Speaker Mike Johnson could impeach any and every left-wing activist judge today with a simple majority vote, meaning he doesn't have to have a supermajority, meaning just by having majority. These judges would be the ones that set up the trials and benefit all the left-wing activism. Said that with the vote of the conservatives in support of American people who voted for them and now has the support of the Senate, because again, we are over both houses, Democrats could lose a ton of these left-wing seats, and the Republicans could impeach them with just one vote. Although 2/3 of the Senate would have to vote needed to remove them, they would be forced to answer to the American people while we're allowing for the interpretation of the judicial branch to actually become activists. See, we would put it before the vote, so then you would actually see who wants to disrupt and who wants to make America better. See, this is why it looks good when Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker comes out and actually wants to say they're looking for support of more crime in their streets compared to what some of these others have done with cleaning up their streets. See, it puts them to a point where they look weak. Did you know that Brandon Johnson, he talks about the safety in Chicago and how Chicago is actually not scary at all and how it's all safe and no issues there. It says that his security is costing the people there upwards of decamillions, $20 to $30 million a year for his safety because of the amount of police and protection he puts around him. So if his city is so safe and he's done so good at managing that city, why would the mayor of Chicago need that much protection? See, what happens is when we allow for good things to happen, like if Mike Johnson actually came out and said, we're going to impeach all these judiciary activists, it would make the Senate have to stand up and say, okay, we're going to vote or not vote. People like Rand Paul, who quote-unquote is a libertarian, who's a Trump supporter, he would probably vote against this. He would actually vote with the left. But what it would do is expose him so that way Kentucky could actually get someone in there that actually is a conservative. It was expose people like Thomas Massie. I love Thomas Massie. But what I've seen lately from people like Thomas Massie, Chip Roy, and Rand Paul, they quote-unquote want the Trump support. They want to be like a Trumpian so they could get the vote. But ultimately, they work in complete, utter disagreement and disrepair to a point of actually building up the Trump push for things that need to get done. I never saw them work so much against someone. They didn't work against Obama like this or Biden like this, but they are sure working against Trump like this. It shows how much they actually hate Trump. It shows that his party is actually not for him. Because as I said, if Mike Johnson really supported Trump and the Congress really supported what Trump wanted, they would get these liberal activist judges out and impeach every one of them. Today, there's yet been arrest by the DOJ. Today, there's yet been impeachments of these judges and activists that are in leadership positions. There's been a lot of grandstanding by Republicans, but actually nothing's gotten done. You're fixed to get to the actual midterm election, and yet Congress and DOJ has done nothing to actually benefit the Trump administration. Little things, yeah, I mean, they've helped a little bit, but when it comes to the high-profile people that should be busted for all the corruption they've done, not done anything. It shows the power of Congress and the establishment. Now, one more thing I want to hit on Congress. Did you know that the Senate and Congress are taking paychecks during the shutdown? They're the ones that's caused the shutdown. They're the ones that's called extra spending. They're the ones that's wanting to give extra money to illegal immigrants. They're the ones that want to fund things all across the world. They're the ones that's wanting to give more money to Ukraine. They're the ones that's wanting to fund these in the arms of every person. And they're still getting checks while your military is standing in food banks. Listen to the story. While your Senate and Congress are getting paid, there's a line outside. And this is where the White House said, the White House came out and said that we're slamming Chuck Schumer because the grueling sight of American troops lining up with their families at food banks during the shutdown. Normally they run out of food at 1 p.m. at these food banks, but because there's so many military guys who don't have a paycheck, it says that the line was wrapped around the building and they were out of food by 10:30 a.m. It's amazing. We ask these people to fight for us. We ask these people to sacrifice their life for us. We ask these people to serve. And then the Congress is still getting filthy rich, holding the shutdown down and allowing for military to not get paid. You know that would be a straight up alpha move if I was Trump. Not Trump. He's a lot smarter than me. But I would work alongside Russ Vought, who is firing a lot of people, which needs to happen, who is probably one of the, between him, Howard Lutnick, David Sachs, a lot of these guys are multi-billionaires. Trump's brilliant businessman. I would sit down and I would try to find out, and Scott Bessent, same way, I'd try to find a way that I could pay the troops and pay the civil service and get them paid and keep the shutdown going. Keep firing all these worthless people in the government. Because remember, the government is employing around 40 to 50% of Americans in some form or fashion. So just think, if we could find another way to pay these troops, and we could do it with tariffs, we could do it with taking the funds from something else, and then make the Democrats have to say that no, they can't do that. You can't pay our troops because we want the illegal immigrants paid first. Again, I think it would automatically make the Democrats look weaker than they look right now. But we need Republicans to actually stand together and support that. Instead, again, we're still infighting, like I said yesterday. But if we really want to blow it out of the water, Trump should come out and say the tariff money that we were going to give back to the American citizens, well, we can't do that because the shutdown's going on. So what we're going to do is fire about 20 to 30% of the government. We're going to use that extra money that we have allocated. Along with the tariff money, we're going to pay the troops because the government is still shut down because of the Democrats. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure they're paid, and then we're going to make sure the most essential things are paid. And ultimately, if you're not getting paid, you're going to get left and fired. Russ Vought fired another, they said, and he called it refied, but basically where they were gone, making a smaller government, fired another 4,000 just yesterday. That's good. We need firing. So the shutdowns are beneficial in a way, even though Trump and them keep saying that they wanted to reopen. It's actually beneficial because it's allowing for the Trump administration to get rid of a lot of people. But if they could find a way, to pay for the troops and pay for this stuff, and while the Congress and Senate's taking their hundreds of thousands of dollars and just basically holding this whole government up and not paying the troops just because they want immigrants paid for, it makes the Congress look like the weak enablers that they are and the ones who's caused the biggest problems. Give me your thoughts on that, because I'm telling you, I think our Congress is worthless. I would love to see every member of Congress, no matter if they're Republican or Democrat, primaried and completely supported by people like Elon Musk. I mean, just come in and just overly support them. You know what Elon should do, too? He's the richest man in the world. He should find a way to come in there, too, and help the troops. He should find a way to come in there and fund about 6 or 7 races that could upend the whole movement. Not the American Party, but for more traditional conservatism, to where we're not blowing money like crazy. We don't need more people that stand in the middle. We need actually more people that stand on the conservative side that actually wants to change Washington. Let's go back. No judges have been impeached. No one's been arrested. We're still dealing with the same corruption. All we're doing is exposing it. But if we don't ever do anything about it, they're going to keep on doing the corruption. Congress is the problem, guys. You can say what you want. Congress is the problem. All right, let's end this video. I want to read this quote from Nathan Rothschild. You know, if you know the Rothschilds, they're a family that owns the world and really made money off the dangers of war and of basically the banking system and so forth. You can do a deep dive in them. I want you to listen to what he says, because I think it speaks volumes of how powerful the establishment is and what their end goal is. Listen to this. It says, I care not, and he's talked about the British government here. Let's go through it. It says, I care not what puppet is in place upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire. And guess what? I control the British money supply. We want Trump to do good things. We want freedom and liberty. But just like this evil man said, it doesn't matter who we put in charge. Because if we control all the money, if we control all the establishment, if we control all the votes, then we control them. So no matter how much they push against us, it doesn't matter. We're over them. Now, there's a lot of evil people in the world that want power and control. And I think that that's where Christians and independents and freedom-minded individuals and libertarians and conservatives and true people who want to raise their family in a way where government is not intervened in their life, I think they're going to have a hard time. And that's why I always tell you to prepare. Because players like this, he says, it doesn't matter who's in charge. We control them because we have all the money. We have all the power. I think about Bernie Sanders coming out yesterday and says that now he wants to build a robotics tax to where if they take people's jobs and businesses hire robotics, we're going to overtax the businesses now for that. So what are we doing? We're telling people they can't work. Then we're still going to charge the businesses more money to tax them. So what I'm saying is this. Don't you think we're taxed enough? Don't you think that they've wasted our money enough? Don't you think that this shutdown is caused by Congress? Don't you think that the problems that we're facing is not because they don't have enough money, it's because they've abused the money and the power that they do have? What we have to realize is we're ran by a lot of evil people. And no matter how great, Trump or RFK or Mike Huckabee or any conservative or any person in this administration is, who holds the money? Who holds the control? Who holds the votes? And I think what we realized is with Elon said, you can't fix Washington. Unless spiritual awakening happens, and this is coming from a guy who's not Christian, he said, unless a spiritual awakening happens, you cannot fix Washington because it is too corrupt and too dangerous and too evil. The reason Rothschild said that is, guess what? They're still in power, and the British Empire's lost all kind of power. You know why? Because they controlled it. They control the votes. They control the people. I laugh because who's controlling your congressman? Who's controlling your school systems? It's all the extra money, the non-GMOs. It's all the extra money. It's all the NGOs. It's all the little side hustle money that the Congress are getting, Senate are getting. They're holding your government hostage and shutting it down and doing their will and doing what they want. And ultimately, not benefit of Americans, but ultimately to benefit someone else, to benefit themselves, and to keep power. The reason they'll never do term limits is because they don't want to lose power. Men thrive on power. And if they're corrupt and pure evil, then they're going to keep pushing to keep that power, because then it gives them even more power and it gets them control over you. And that is scary. Guys, give me your thoughts on today's video. Let's wake up. Time to wake up and prepare and be ready for anything, because there's a lot to take place. And like that advisor and that intelligence officer said, now the peace is here. Let's focus on the Temple Mount and all three world religions. That's a big deal. Pay attention. Thank you guys for watching. God bless.